CBS News senior national security contributor Michael Morell is in Washington. He is the former acting and deputy director of the CIA and joins me now. So, Michael, you signed this letter. Why did you feel it was important for you to speak out?
Anne-Marie, I just didn't sign the letter. I was one of the organizers of the letter. And I'll tell you, it was a difficult process to get the language of the letter just right, because there were those of us who believe that what John Brennan has done since he left government is exactly the right thing to do, appropriate, important to speak up in a democracy. But there were those of us who felt just the opposite way. There were those of us who felt that what John has done in becoming so political is inconsistent with being a former director. So it was tough to get that language right. But we agreed on two things, and that's what drove us at the end of the day to do this. And those two things are, number one, John Brennan is a patriot. He served his country his entire life. He did a remarkable job in every position he ever held. There are Americans who are alive today who would otherwise not be alive if it wasn't for the work of John Brennan. And we take a significant offense at those who claim that John doesn't have integrity, that John lied to Congress, that John did this or John did that. And so we wanted to push back against that. We wanted to be supportive of John's time in government. The second thing that drove us is that, to us, this had nothing to do with national security. This had everything to do with politics. And what bothered us about it is the use of a national security tool, the granting and revocation of security clearances for political purposes, in this case, to intimidate others from speaking out and criticizing the president and his policies. So those are the two reasons that drove us to do the letter.
You talked about how careful you were with the language in the letter. In the letter, it calls the president's action a signal to other former and current officials. Are you concerned that this sort of behavior on the part of the president will inhibit others from speaking out in the future? And do you think that this is a dangerous precedent that the president is setting?
So that's a great question. So I don't believe that what the president has done here will intimidate former senior officials, right? It's not intimidating me. It's not intimidating Mike Hayden. It didn't intimidate any of the 13 people who decided to sign on to this letter. But I am concerned about the next level down. Those individuals who have another future in government, those individuals whose clearances are needed for them to work at defense contractors, at other government contractors, and who do write op-eds and who do talk to the media and who do say what they believe the truth is. Those are the people I'm concerned who may be intimidated by this, and that would be a loss for our democracy.
Well, the president said that on Wednesday, he said that the Russia investigation was one of the reasons that he revoked Brennan's clearance. And then now the Washington Post is reporting that he wants to actually strip the clearances of more officials tied to the Russia investigation. Your take on this? What's the significance of that?
So here's my worry. My worry is that he'll eventually go down the road to revoking the security clearances of Special Counsel Bob Mueller and the other individuals working with him. Might not fire him, right, but revoke his clearances, which would make doing his job nearly impossible, because when you're working on a counterintelligence investigation, you are awash in classified information. So there's a slippery road between revoking former officials who are not involved in that investigation and former officials who are involved in that investigation.
But, you know, the president is finding support. Some Republicans, including Senators John Cornyn, Cory Gardner, Tim Scott, they're backing the president's decision to pull John Brennan's clearance. Are you surprised by their support? And do you think this is the sort of support that will embolden the president, even though he's getting a lot of pushback from people like you?
So there's absolutely no doubt that that support emboldens him, and that support is important to him, but it's also not at all surprising to me. You know, on any number of issues, on which they would normally oppose the president on a number of policy issues. They have backed him because, in my view, and I'm not a political analyst, but in my view, they are afraid of the president's base and what that base would do to them in a primary run. So that's why they back the president. It's pure politics.
And there's another strong voice joining you in your sentiment, retired Navy Admiral William McRaven. He oversaw the Navy SEAL raid that killed Osama bin Laden. He wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post yesterday asking President Trump to also revoke his security clearance as a measure of solidarity with John Brennan. How strong of a statement is that?
I think it's an incredibly strong statement. Bill is one of the most apolitical, nonpartisan, greatest patriots that I know. This is the first time that he has spoken out politically. And the United States military is one of the few institutions in America that still has the deep respect of the American people. So I think people like Bill speaking out send a very powerful signal.
All right, Michael Morell, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good to be with you.